Hi, friends. Welcome to our latest American Mussar weekly gathering. This will be our first week exploring the soul trait of gratitude. So we'll get into that in just a couple of minutes. But first, we'll begin the way we always do with a short guided meditation. So I invite you to relax and close your eyes. Just maybe wiggle your shoulders or rock back in the chair to become comfortable. And then take a deep inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And then a deep inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And if thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass, like watching a car go by on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Hello, Eileen and Liam and Joyce. Welcome.
Thank you.
As I have said many times, for me, when I open my eyes, it's always like, who is Elijah bringing today?
Mm.
Who, who is here? Okay, well, let's get started. And for our opening question, we're turning to one of my favorite modern authors, um, inspired by Brene Brown, who has done such incredible breakthrough work on shame and finding fulfillment in life. And so she talks about this concept of being enough. So for our opening discussion, what is enough in your life? And when I was younger and a very hard charging, college person and corporate person, I had this motto, too much is never enough, which, was very energetic and all that, but it didn't actually serve me well in the long run. So I no longer think that. But for you, what is enough? We'll start with an easy one today, right? Hi, Terry. Welcome. Hi, Susan. Nice to see you. We're asking ourselves, what is enough?
Mm.
Yes, Pete.
For me, enough is living within my means.
Hmm, thank you. Sue.
I don't know if I can answer the question, but it made me think of one of my favorite quotes by Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel is to be is holy. And
Hmm,
I think I aspire to that, but it doesn't usually work out. But the idea is just what's enough, just being alive, being
Mm.
here. So I like that quote, to be is holy.
yeah.
And is that enough? That's the question. Yeah. I mean, on many levels, I think it is being alive. Um, so to answer the question more specifically, being alive, helping community, um, being there for people. I
Yeah,
mean,
thank you,
that's
Sue.
so.
The Frank.
Um, for Linda and I, it looks like we're moving to a facility where it's going to be easier to live.
Mm,
And we lived in a community, a co-op that for over 45 years.
mm,
And so we're leaving it. And one way of looking at it is that it was enough,
mm,
that rather than cling, um, because we would love to cling, because this was, we were like bosom of our community. Um, uh, we even started a sing-along with our people we live with, but also with our neighbors recently.
mm.
But we're gonna move on, and I'm really grateful that we did this. So,
Thank you, Frank. I'm listening with an open heart. And yeah, it sounds like in this case, you're really trying to cultivate that feeling of enoughness. You're making a choice.
mhm.
And I remember it wasn't quite as serious, but when I had to give up eating gluten, I had to give up one of my favorite foods, which was pizza. He said, I have eaten thousands of pieces of pizza in my life, and that's enough. So, and that helped me to really, not wallow in the something I had no control over anymore. With Wendy and then Michael, and
Just
welcome.
short. It's very short. I'm just thinking. For me, it's a place to turn to. And that's the divine for me. I
Hmm.
I have that place. It's just always there.
Mhm. Thank you, Wendy. Michael.
I don't know if I have a good answer to a very good question, but the word I wrote down on my pad here is acceptance,
Hmm.
um, of what is, of who I am, of my limits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's all I got.
Yeah, thank you. It reminds me of something from Pirkei Avot. I think it was Ben Zoma who said, "Who is wise one who is happy with their lot?" Someone who's happy with what they have, and that's not always easy. Um, Especially when we live in a society where billions of dollars are spent on marketing and advertising, making you feel scarcity, making you feel like you don't have enough, making you feel like you'll be happier with one more whatever. Aileen.
The first thing that came to me is love. Love, I mean, I feel like, I guess when I approached the question, I thought, what is it that will make life bearable no
Mm,
matter what? And for me, feeling love and giving love, um, is where it's at for me. Yeah, where it's at.
yeah, thank you, Aileen. Yes, Joyce.
The thing that came to my mind right away when you asked that question, and then I kind of got off of the topic, but for me, it's hope.
Hmm.
Enough is to have hope.
Hmm. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, let's tie this in now to gratitude. So I'm not going to be able to see all of you probably. Oh, we're going to skip the assumption for today. And I would love it if someone, now we're just misbehaving. So I can't see all of you, but I would love it if someone could read this first paragraph.
I will.
Thank you.
Mussar teaches that the gratitude soul trait governs our ability to recognize the good in any situation. In fact, the Hebrew word for the soul trait literally translates as recognizing the good.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to stop the share. So the Hebrew is Hakarat Hatov, recognizing the good. So I'm going to put this in the chat because your memories may not be as good as mine is. As a matter of fact, my memory is not good enough to remember all of this. So recognizing the good in any situation. So couple of questions. What does that mean in your own words? And the bonus question is, how does this relate to the concept of enoughness that we started to touch on in our opening? A few more hellos to Karen and Sarah and Guy, and Carolyn, who've just joined us along the way, and Tony, Toby.
Well, as I was saying earlier, I had a flood last night. And of course, in my guest bathroom, which is kind of connected to everything. So there was an inch of water in the bathroom and then running down my wood floors into the living room, an inch of water. Well, it's probably more than that. But anyway, bottom line is, and of course, you call the emergency plumber because I don't know how to do anything. And the emergency plumber, of course, it's after hours and it's an emergency. So the tariff at the end of all of this was humongous. It was like a mortgage payment. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was interesting. Anyway, but the Hakarat Hatov part of it, everybody's fine. I managed to get my exercise yesterday by taking a big push broom and pushing the water out into the garage.
Hmm.
So I got my exercise, which I did not do yesterday. And the plumbers, God bless them, they were lovely people. And they managed to solve the situation sufficiently so that at the very least, I could use hot water in the rest of the house. I could use water in the rest of the house. So
Oh, good.
you can't use that bathroom if you come to my house, but you can use the other ones.
Okay.
So that's the Hakarat Hatov part.
Excellent. Thank you, Toby. Wendy.
The short one. Rabbi Greg, how you always say we listen with an open heart.
Mhm.
So I was reminded that when it said recognize the good in any situation, I thought sometimes I don't recognize it till later.
Hmm.
But if you go into the situation with an open heart,
Hmm.
knowing that you're going to see that, it's kind of like related back to the Mussar trait of trust, I think.
Mhm.
And when I say Moda Ani, sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and of course, my intention is to always say the Moda Ani, but sometimes I get, tweaked or upset about something before, and then I'm reminded all of a sudden to say that. And it is kind of enough, just to know that I might not see it right now, but it's going to be there. You just have to have that open heart.
Hmm. Thank you. I love that connection to kind of keeping an open heart. And also, it may not be there right away. It might be really hard. I mean, there's some really awful, crappy situations that can come up, and it may not be till the fullness of time. Um, and it's not meant to be an exercise in why can't I feel anything to be grateful for in this situation? That's not, we never want to beat ourselves up over use Mussar to throw gas on the fire. I will just say this is totally a totally random aside, but Moda Ani Lefanecha, it fits perfectly to the music of Oh, What a Beautiful Morning. Moda Ani Lefanecha,
Wow.
Melech Chai V'Kayam. So,
Oh, I just think you've changed my mornings. Thank you. Ooh, gratitude.
That's funny.
Susan,
Oh, sorry. I thought I was on silent. Sorry, but thank you.
that's
I
okay.
was thinking, Gamzula Tova, there's good in everything. I think there are some things that happen that in and of themselves are pretty terrible, but that good can come from them. So, if I think about the years my mother had Alzheimer's, that was pretty terrible. But I know that I changed in ways that were really good for me during that time.
Hmm.
Or, being a young person in my 20s and getting fired from a job as a secretary was sort of like a wake-up call to, that then went back to grad school and had a whole
Hmm.
nice career. But being told I was being fired was definitely not a good thing. So
Hmm.
sometimes, finding the good and stuff, it's not the actual incident that feels so good, but we can see, oh, that was a turning point, or that was a growth opportunity, or, that something good came out of it.
Hmm. Yes, Joyce.
I just want to say that Toby's example of what she went through with her bathroom flooding was a perfect example of there's always something to be thankful for. She was thankful for those people that could come and fix the problem. And there's always something to be happy about. She was happy that she got her exercise in. That was just a perfect example of those two truths in what
Mhm.
we're talking about.
Yeah. I was saying to someone the other day that I think one of Judaism's superpowers is being able to hold very different emotions at the same time. Like, yeah, oh my God, what a headache with this bathroom. And I could just let it suck all the energy out of all of my life.
Yeah. Wow, wow,
Or
wow.
I can allow myself some joy at the same time from doing these other things. So, yes. Yes, Sue.
That
And
reminded
then
me
Tony.
of, oh, do you want me to go ahead?
I will go with you and then Tony.
Oh, okay. So that just reminded me of Musar putting together equanimity and being grateful. I have a statement that I like to say is rise above distress and recognize the good.
Mm,
Putting them together because um, trying to get through something is hard. So if you can, if there's any goodness there, I think it works after because a lot of times you can't see it right away, and
yeah.
then it comes later. But it can also come in the moment of when you're in that moment of distress.
Mm,
You can try to see if there's anything that will get me out of this. Either if you're worried about something in your head or something actually happens like the flood. So there we go.
thank you, Sue. Okay, Tony.
Hi. So I was thinking back to 3 years ago when I really learned about gratitude or looking at the opportunity in such a difficult situation. And 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with endometrial cancer. And every time something was happening that was like really stressing me out, for some reason, it like pushed me towards this place where a good thing came out of it.
Mm,
And like I had to go in for an x-ray, and the place I usually go to, which I really didn't like, they said, oh, you have to go to this other place. And I went there and I thought, oh my God, I love this place. I love these people. And I ended up
mm.
switching my care
Oh,
to a different
wow.
location. And which, and then after I had this small procedure done, somebody came to pick me up and we went in the wrong direction. And he was like, oh, sorry, we have to turn around and go back. And I was like, no problem. And I stopped um, and looked at this woman, and I had a port put in. Um, and this woman looked at me and she said, that was the best decision I ever made. And I just felt like, this
Mm,
little turn that we took that wasn't the right direction ended up giving such a blessing. Um,
mm,
And I just felt like that kept happening with my whole diagnosis. So the horrible thing was the diagnosis, but then there was so much that I ended up having or was able to be grateful for, like my synagogue community giving me rides to treatment and making meals for me, and somebody saying, somebody had dropped off a meal, and I was just like, I can't even begin to tell you how much this fills my heart. And he
Mm.
just looked at me, and I've only been there since 2019. And, part of that was COVID. And,
Yeah, yeah.
and, I said, I can't believe how I just can't, express how much this fills my heart. And he looked at me and he says, but we love you. And I thought,
Mm.
oh, thank you. And in the back of my mind, I was like, why? Like, I hardly even know everyone, and it was
Mm.
just this moment where it was just like people are like giving me love, and it was my duty, um, or mitzvah, to accept it, and it did. In such a horrible situation, it hasn't yet felt horrible because I've had so much come to me. Um, and so that's where I think I learned gratitude, like in such a bad place.
Mm.
Um, I've there's just been so many blessings that came out of it. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really fills my heart to hear how well you've been received and supported by your community. And I
amazing.
love that you said, your job is to accept the mitzvahs from other people. And we've talked about that, within the last year, just how sometimes how hard it can be to accept help. And when we don't accept help, we deprive someone else of the opportunity to do a mitzvah.
Yeah, I actually said that to my rabbi when I first found out I had cancer. I said, because you start having all these epiphanies. And one of them was, I think one of the most important things in life is to accept love. I think that, like you're saying, it is the hardest thing, and that it ends up dying when it isn't transferred.
Mm,
And yeah, so
love
but
that.
thank you. Thank you for letting me share that. I'm gonna mute
One of the
myself.
hardest things in life is to accept love. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to use that at some point, somewhere. Michael, I think you were next.
So along those same lines, when I practice, I've been recently making a list, because I think it's important for me to really be aware of these kinds of things and practice them intentionally. I've been making a list of every single time somebody annoys me. And as
Mm.
I do this, some of these things are big and some of these things are small, and it's a rather lengthy list, and it continues to grow. But as I do it, and I find myself being able to hold to what you said earlier, Rabbi, about holding two thoughts at the same time, being able to be annoyed with somebody and yet being grateful for their presence in my life in whatever way they are. The unexpected benefit for me is that I am far more aware that other people can do that with me.
Mm.
And it is really easy for me to lose sight of that. I can imagine that if somebody I fear, that if somebody is annoyed at me, that I've ruined that relationship permanently.
Mm.
And this practice for me is a reminder that yes,
Oh, yeah.
if I can hold those two things together at the same time, certainly other people can too. And I can look for relationships with people who are able to do that and want to do that.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that, Michael. Yeah, it's very powerful, very important yeah, I love the way you kind of put yourself in someone else's shoes in a way that we sometimes don't think about doing. Oh, if I'm giving someone else a break, maybe they're giving me a break, instead of imagining, they're the hanging judge, so to speak, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Hi, Dave, welcome. Okay, yes, Sarah.
Welcome, everyone.
Hi. Thanks for reminding me. I remember when we've discussed this soul trait in the past, and I sometimes forget to have gratitude when these difficult things, when life happens. And recently, I was took my partner to the ER. He was very, very sick, was immediately admitted. Long story, he's fine. He's better. But
Good,
he
good.
but I'm so grateful that I had the intuition to take him and that he said yes, because I mean, they practically immediately said sepsis. And, then he ended up having surgery and was in the hospital for 3 days. But, sometimes, the intuition worked, and it was a very, very stressful situation. And not everything went great with the hospitalization, but primarily the care was excellent, other than he was discharged at 11 o'clock at night, 3 hours after the surgery. Yeah.
Oh boy.
It's like, welcome to healthcare. But I have to focus on the fact that there was so much good care, through those 3 days. And I'm really grateful for that. And, you know, I find that aging, there's a lot of things, I have different aches and pains, and I have an upcoming surgery in a couple of weeks for a condition, for carpal tunnel. And I'm grateful I have insurance. I'm grateful I have a couple of different people that I can say, hey, I need a ride. And, I'm so grateful. Like, forget who shared about the bathroom incident, but it's like, thank God you had more than one bathroom. Um, so anyway, yeah, it's a good reminder, because there's often situations in my life that something good happens, or something bad happens, but there's something good, or vice versa. Something could be more good, but then something bad happens, and you have to kind of hold those two things. So yeah, that's good to remember, to remind myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, we are going to move on here just a little bit because I want to get us to our breakout rooms. But before we are ready to go there, spend a couple minutes looking at the spectrum of gratitude. Now, the idea here is with all soul traits, having too much is just as bad as having not enough. So, starting on the not enough side, what happens if we have too little gratitude? How does that sort of show up?
We can take things for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. We can take things for granted. And then what happens when we take things for granted?
I think we can forget what our blessings are and we can go into a really negative headspace.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Great. And what about too much gratitude? Gratitude, we've been talking about, it's such a good thing. How come we have to be too grateful? What's the downside of that?
I'm not sure if I understand that.
I think this is Tony speaking, but I think that if you have, it's almost like having too much Yitzhar Hatov, it's like not being able to see the thing that may be forcing you um, to recognize the gratitude. So maybe you're not paying enough attention to the situation. Like I'm very grateful for those who are helping me, but there's things that I need to do myself.
Hmm.
And so I think it may, um, I think both. If you're not recognizing the gratitude you have, or maybe overcompensating, that it takes away accountability.
Yeah.
My reaching out was the thing that helped me get all of those people helping me, and then my thanking them and my expressing my gratitude to them, um, made us all feel great. Like made us all feel like
Hmm.
this is a good community. This is something that we want to sustain. But I think if I accepted the gratitude, but then did not apply it to my situation to make it feel manageable,
Hmm.
I don't think I feel like it would have been a gratitude or a blessing that I really didn't receive,
Yeah,
you know?
thank you. Okay, so I see a lot of people who have jumped in. We're going to go a little bit speed round here because I want to, in about 5 minutes, start heading towards the breakout room so we're not rushed at the end. So first up is Eileen.
I was just going to say that when we're on that far end of gratitude, of complacency, I think we've kind of lost gratitude. I mean, when I'm complacent, I'm not tuning in and feeling the deep sense of gratitude that I could be feeling. All those things like, oh, how lucky I am. I'm it's a
Mm,
blessing that this is happening. I just don't think, I think when you're complacent, you're not feeling gratitude.
yeah, thank you, Eileen. Okay, Susan, I think you're up next, and then Wendy.
I agree with that. The only thing I would add is, or that you are going to miss something that really should be changed, or that you could change, or an input that you could make, whether
Right.
it's asking for help, as we just heard, or just, kind of instead of saying everything is for the good and everything is as it should be, to say, well, maybe I need to tweak that, or maybe, I need to help somebody else.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Not everything is okay. And sometimes we can't control things, but so let's see. Next we have Wendy and then Peter.
On the same line as what Susan just said about missing something, I felt like too little and too much do the same thing. They take your focus off of what might be and also take your vision away. You're not going to notice the things. You're not going to know if it's good or bad. It
Mhm.
just seems like you're just off kilter. You're not going to be able to notice stuff.
Right, we lose a level of discernment. Great point. Um, so I think up next is Peter and then Frank or
Yeah,
Linda.
yeah. I think of too much gratitude is perhaps losing your initiative,
Hmm.
to be more
Mhm.
than you are.
Love that. Thank you. And let's see, now we have Frank and Linda.
Linda, I think sometimes if you display too much gratitude, people won't believe you.
Mhm.
Hmm. You mean it might become like almost a fawning sort of thing?
Yeah.
Hmm. Good point. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all so much. I am now going to start. Oh, wait, I'm starting to open the breakout rooms, but first, we got to talk about what we're going to talk about. Um, so, if the opposite of scarcity is enoughness, then practicing gratitude is how we acknowledge that there is enough and we are enough. So we started talking about where you feel like what feels like enough to you, where you feel like enough. And then in the breakout rooms, when we're in a confidential environment, you'll have a chance to kind of share, well, maybe is there a place where you don't feel like you're enough? And is there a way that gratitude could help you with that? So that is the prompt for our rooms. Let me just see if these look okay. I think they do. Um, so wait, I'm just gonna do one quick change. Okay, the rooms are open. So we'll probably have about 10 minutes. So
This stuff was for you. And then this is from the
Oh, here we are again.
Greg, you're muted.
Rabbi, you're muted.
That is really too bad because I was really articulate. Um,
We missed it.
so we can go back and read my lips on the recording. But I was welcoming you back, and I was inviting people to share maybe an insight they had in the conversation, and just a reminder also to keep what your partner or partner shared confidential. But you can speak about an insight about yourself or just a general kind of line of thought that you had. So I always tell it's a good conversation when like nobody jumps in early to come back. So everyone used every second they had. Liam, start us off.
But without getting into too great of a detail, our conversation ended up spiraling from the internal self to a community at large, and how one given community handled that question of, are we enough? Do we have enough? And how over time, as one challenge over another was met, the idea of what became even possible, let alone enough, became, it evolved over time.
Hmm.
And it left me thinking about how that, bringing it back to the going around full circle, that, back to the original, to the self, that, as we evolve as people, hopefully, and we continue to grow, even what we consider enough in our own lives can change as we adapt to each individual thing and adjust to it.
Hmm.
New possibilities become open to us that, say, 20 years ago we didn't think of. And I just I don't know. It was just getting really, really good, and the session was up.
Well, it sounds like a fabulous conversation. And Liam, let me ask if I'm understanding you correctly. Part of it might be, okay, like today, 25-year-old me, this was enough. But 35-year-old me, it's not enough, and I'm looking for something more.
Exactly. And your thought of what is even in that realm of possibility can change as well. That as an example, maybe at 25, the idea of traveling to Europe, well, okay, I can live without that. It's fine. This is, America is enough. But at, 58, looking at it and going, well, gee, now I've got the money to do it. And where before I never considered it as being something I'd even want because it wasn't within the realm of possibility. But now
Yeah.
it's a new enough, and
Yeah.
it just, I don't know, struck me as being a very fascinating conversation as we were observing how things change, in a larger scale like that.
Thank you, Liam. Thank you. That's awesome stuff. Wendy.
We had a good conversation. We all agreed that having too little gratitude was probably not optimal. But one of the things that one of them said, one of the people in the group said, was sharing the gratitude that you have for another person and making sure that person knew that you were grateful. And I took that to heart because I don't think I always do that. I'll go along going, oh, I'm really grateful for that. But do I tell them? I'm not sure I do that. I'm going to do that from now on. I think that's very important.
Love that. Thank you, Wendy. Other thoughts, reflections? Yes, Tony.
I think what came up for us was how not feeling enough or feeling lacking made us feel, or at least made me feel disconnected um, from the thing that I wanted most. Like if it were socializing for me, not feeling like I am enough or I'm feeling behind socially and engaging with people, and then not recognizing um, the gratitude, like not recognizing those who were reaching out Um, and then feeling less than or not feeling enough was blocking the gratitude and then the experience, the
Yeah.
connection. Yeah. So not feeling enough, blocked the gratitude, and then prevented the connection. That's the most
Right.
important thing.
Wow, and that's quite a chain. That's, sometimes we talk about a virtuous cycle. That's the opposite, the not so virtuous cycle, where, like it says in the Talmud, mitzvah leads to another mitzvah, and a sin leads to another sin. And, it's what we call today's spiraling, just, yeah. So thank you, Tony. That's a great breakdown. Sue.
So we had a great conversation and we needed at least another 30 minutes. But anyway, one of the things I wanted to share was um, I shared where I didn't feel I had enough in a certain area, and then I figured out how to get what I needed. So, I mean, I think there's also a piece to this where if you feel like you're missing something, maybe figure out is there a way to get what you need if you don't have enough of whatever it is. I don't know if we've mentioned that in the conversation at all. But the next step, and my example was, I'll just say, being a bubby. I'm not going to have grandchildren, and I was very sad about that. But I figured out I joined a program, a grand fam program, where I could be the grandparent to a family that didn't have grandparents, and we could do a match. So that was a way of being a grandparent in a way. So be a bubby. But so that it strikes me is that if we feel like we're not enough or don't have what enough, then maybe there's a way we can get or try to obtain whatever it is that we're lacking.
Yeah, so thank you, Sue. I'm listening to your example with an open heart, and if I can bring it into a gratitude context, if that's okay. Like we had talked about, having too much gratitude would not be a good thing. It's like, oh, I'm not going to be a grandmother, but oh, well, I can be grateful that I was a parent, or I can be grateful that I was a great aunt for the kids that I saw twice in my life. And oh, that was, and maybe that, and then maybe for you in that circumstance, that would be too much gratitude, where it's like, no, I want to have a relationship with young kids. And so finding a way to get what you needed or what you wanted, that's really beautiful. So thank you. Does that make sense? Do you think I was describing that in a solid way?
Oh, yeah. And that was one of the comments in the great conversation that be grateful for what you have. And I also was comparing myself to everybody else who has grandchildren, but that's not
Mm.
true. Not everybody. Some people don't have children, I mean, so the comparing myself to other people is not what you're saying is just be grateful for what you have, which is the point, I think.
Right. Well, it's you want to be grateful, but not too grateful.
Right.
Right. Because you could say, I could be grateful, and we do want to be grateful, but it doesn't have to stop there. It doesn't mean we can't ask for more, you know. Sarah.
I just wanted to say, it's important not to minimize, you know, wanting something, and sometimes I could say, wow, I've got a great life. I've got this and this and this, but sometimes I don't feel so great. But that doesn't mean that I'm not, so I like, the example, Sue, of like if you identify something like a deficit, that you can do something about it. So, because I tend to want to minimize and say, oh, don't you have enough? Is it ever going to be enough? I mean, the negative self-talk. And it's like, you can want what you want. You can be grateful, but you could also be sad. Um, so yeah, just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Yes, Tony.
It reminded me of what someone had said about having too much gratitude and not really ended up, it doesn't seem sincere. And I think in denying, I mean, it reminds me of when you're having too much gratitude that you're not being authentic or having an appropriate reaction to something that is sad or that makes you angry, and that actually comes out eventually in a bad way.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you know, mourning something is an authentic or an appropriate way to respond to something, but then just not falling into it where it's the only thing that blocks everything. But definitely acknowledging your appropriate feelings or feelings on something.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Tony. And our feelings aren't always rational, right? I mean, and it's sort of like, I'm upset about this. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I am. And that's, and in a safe relationship, there could be space for that too. Well, we're kind of coming to the end. I just want to open things up. If there's anyone who hasn't commented today or who's hasn't been here many times, or if this is the first time and you'd like to kind of add something, you can do so, but there is no requirement to. Well, thank you all. This was a really powerful session for me and has given me a lot to think about, and which is in what is a little bit of a tender time for me, as you can imagine. So, and making sense of a lifelong relationship where there are some things I'm grateful for and some things that not particularly. So, but what was overall a very good person. So, we'll close the way we always do with a short meditation. So please, just relax and once again close your eyes. And take a leisurely exhale and let go, or a leisurely inhale, followed by a leisurely exhale. Let's just take a moment for this hour spent in community. Thank ourselves for taking the time to look within, to give ourselves an opportunity to grow. And let's radiate our thanks out to the warmth of this community, the acceptance, the non-judgment, and I hope the safety for us to be together as we explore. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.